Yeah, hi folks, this is Tim, aka Faceless Fat Loss. Tim, also known as Faceless Fat Loss. I wanted to continue along and discuss the antibiotic yeast overgrowth candida issue. I think it's extremely important because I believe it's an epidemic, and I wanted to show you how much we're being overexposed to antibiotics that can be continually contributing to this very problem. It's not only important for our health, folks, it can be a direct tie-in to weight and fat issues. So please pay attention to this. MSNBC article. You might have heard about this. It made international news over the past year. Pharmaceuticals lurking in U.S. drinking water. Associated Press probe found traces of meds in water supplies of 41 million Americans. A vast array of pharmaceuticals, including antibiotics, the very first thing they list, have been found in the drinking water supplies of at least 41 million Americans. To be sure, the concentration of these pharmaceuticals are tiny, measured in quantities of parts per billion or trillion, far below the levels of a medical dose. But, what's the problem with this? We still have a major problem we're contending with. Do we need water? Folks, do we need water? We can go for a while without food, but we cannot go for very long without water. And unfortunately, not only are they finding these pharmaceutical drugs in our tap water supply, and you know how I feel about tap water, but they're also finding it in the bottled water supply. The exposure to antibiotics doesn't end there. Now, let's see. Okay, the antibiotics in milk I will cover in a moment. Let's consider the other areas where there's antibiotics and antibacterials. The hand soap industry is a great example. Think about everything and all the things we're constantly exposed to that have antibiotics in them. When it comes to hand soaps, we're washing our hands with these soaps containing antibiotics, and then we're rinsing our hands with the water that's bringing all the residue back into the water supply, the water tables, and obviously they're not doing a very good job at getting the antibiotics out. So obviously we're adding to the problem over and over again. The mouthwashes, antibacterial mouthwash, they always emphasize antibacterial. The creams and the ointments and the lotions and the gels and even the eye drops and ear drops and the nasal sprays. They even put it in tissue paper. It's just everywhere. So we have a constant exposure to antibiotics. Now, antibiotics have been used in the farming industry for a very long time. It's well known that their antibiotic residues are in milk and the meats. So let me go on to another article. Yeah, oops, there we go. Out of Boston College. Appropriate regulation of antibiotics in livestock feed. It's talking about both the cows and the poultry. Let me get down to this, the use of antibiotics in American agriculture. At the current time, there are three primary uses of antibiotics in animal agriculture: therapeutic, prophylactic, and growth promotion. The use of antibiotics to ward off infections and to promote growth in livestock is not new. For more than 40 years, many farmers have fed their animals a diet laced with small therapeutic doses of antibiotics. Now keep in mind, they're giving the antibiotics to animals that aren't even sick, that don't have a bacterial infection. They're giving them specifically to make them grow and fatten them up. The increasing use of antibiotics in agriculture has paralleled an astonishing growth in the use of antibiotics generally. In 1954, let me back up. Part of the increase in antibiotic use is attributable to the declining effectiveness of the drugs as growth promoters. Specifically, over time, the amount of antibiotics needed to promote growth in farm animals has increased significantly. My gosh! Now you couple this with the fact that they feed these animals a grain diet. Why do they give them a grain diet? It's designed to do the very same thing, to fatten up the animals. So you combine the grain diet with the antibiotics and you'll make the animal very fat. Now, as an aside, I have a huge moral and ethical issue with that, but I won't discuss that right now, other than to say we should really be treating our animals much better and appreciating our food sources way better than we do. I think we're far out of balance in that regard. But to continue, if you are taking antibiotics or have in the past, and you're using and drinking the water and exposing yourself to all these antibacterial, antibiotic products over and over again, then you're eating meat that is going to have antibiotic residue in it. And or the milk. I sort of bypassed that. The milk, think about all the milk products out there, the ice creams and the cheeses, the creams, countless dairy products. And on top of that, you're also consuming grain products. And you hear me talk about that. Isn't it safe to assume that in the same way the grains and the antibiotics are fattening up the animals, that they're surely going to fatten you up as well? I think it's a reasonable conclusion to make, and I'm not the only one who comes to this conclusion. I've got lots of support in the underground alternative health fields. It's right in our faces. And note how the industry as a whole never addresses it. I just don't think it behooves them to. I think it would tamper with the economy too much to even address these issues. So, you know how I feel about antibiotics, and you know how I feel about pharmaceutical drugs in general. They should be used only as a last-ditch effort if you're in an emergency and there's plenty of healthy alternatives to all of these drugs that can do as good, if not better, job with a tiny to non-existent side effect profile in comparison. These pharmaceutical drugs have long side effect profiles. I don't want you to be thinking to yourself, well, I'm just going to go out and get an antifungal pharmaceutical drug and that'll help me resolve my yeast issue and help me get back into balance. No, no, no. Why? A very popular, very powerful antifungal drug uses as one of its main components to fight the fungal and yeast issues fluoride. If you search the names of various antifungal drugs, you will find a hint of the word fluoride in the name itself. Why don't we want fluoride? Now, as another side, we drink a lot of fluoridated water in this country, don't we, and in North America. Note, in many parts of the world, fluoridation isn't even allowed. In a sense, we're being medicated without our consent. It's a whole other issue I will cover later. But when you take in fluoride, what does fluoride quickly impact in your body? Your thyroid gland. Very definitely impacts the thyroid gland. Why is that important to us? Because the thyroid gland is vitally, the health of the thyroid is crucial to maintaining a healthy weight, as many of you know out there. I hope this information is helpful. Thank you so much for being a paid subscriber. Lots more information to come. Love, happiness, health, and peace.